What happens when a young star demands greatness, but instead becomes the problem herself? Angel Reese, the self-proclaimed future of the Chicago Sky, has shaken the WNBA with bold words, fiery interviews, and controversial actions. But instead of uniting her team, her own comments may have lit the fuse that's tearing Chicago apart. This isn't just a story about one player. It's a drama of ambition, ego, locker room chaos, and the brutal reality of professional basketball. So buckle up, because the question we're asking today: is Angel Reese really the future of the Chicago Sky, or the reason their future is falling apart? It all started with one explosive interview. Reese didn't mince her words when speaking to the Chicago Tribune. She flat out declared, "I'm not settling for the same thing we did this year. We need good players. We need great players. That's non-negotiable." On the surface, it sounded like ambition, a young star pushing for excellence. But inside the Sky locker room, those words landed like a bombshell. Teammates were furious, veterans were offended, even management felt blindsided. Sources confirmed that an emergency team meeting had to be called, just to deal with the fallout of her comments. Imagine that. A rookie-turned-sophomore is still trying to prove herself, and suddenly half the team has to sit down because of her mouth. That's not leadership. That's damage control. And the tension only grew when her words targeted respected veterans. One of her sharpest digs was aimed at none other than Courtney Vandersloot, a two-time WNBA champion, five-time All-Star, and one of the most respected point guards in the league. Reese dismissed Vandersloot as too old to count on, suggesting Chicago needed someone younger, hungrier, and more experienced to lead them to a championship. Think about that. Vandersloot, a proven winner with a championship pedigree, brushed aside like yesterday's news. That comment didn't just sting in Chicago, it echoed across the entire league. But here's the irony. Chicago already went out of their way to build around Reese. The front office gave up rookie standout Sonia Citron, who is now thriving and even made an all-star run, just to bring in Ariel Atkins, a proven championship guard. That was supposed to be the move. That was supposed to give Reese exactly what she wanted, established talent to help win now. Instead of gratitude, she doubled down, saying the roster still wasn't good enough. So what do you do when the team spends big to please its star, but the star acts like it's never enough? And while Reese was calling for elite players, her own game wasn't exactly backing up the talk. On paper, the numbers don't look bad. About 14 to 15 points per game and double-digit rebounds. Solid, right? But look deeper. She's leading the entire league in turnovers, despite missing weeks of action with injury. That's not dominance. That's sloppy basketball. Even worse, 20% of her shots within 9 feet of the rim get blocked. And at critical moments, she's been more of a liability than a leader. And then came the suspension. 8 technical fouls in a single season. An automatic 1-game suspension by league rules. The worst part? That suspension came right before the highly anticipated rivalry matchup against Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Fans had been circling that game for weeks. Instead of stepping onto the court, Reese was sidelined. Not for injury, not for rest, but for losing her composure and striking Aaliyah Edwards on a rebound play. When your team needs you most, the last thing they want is their so-called cornerstone sitting out for disciplinary reasons. And here's where things take a darker twist. When Reese wasn't on the floor, the Chicago Sky sometimes looked better. The ball moved faster. The defense tightened up. Players looked more confident. And occasionally, they even pulled out wins. Usually, the mark of a franchise star is that they elevate their team. But with Reese, the opposite seemed to happen. More minutes without her sometimes meant more success. That's not a franchise player, that's a red flag. Now, contrast that with Caitlin Clark in Indiana. Clark has been under the most intense spotlight any rookie has ever faced. Every play, every game, every word is magnified. Yet, she's handled it with composure, professionalism, and maturity beyond her years. Even when injured, Clark traveled with the team, sat on the sidelines, and supported her teammates. Reese, meanwhile, stayed away when injured, leaving her squad to push forward without her. That difference in presence spoke volumes. Clark didn't just show up. She lifted her teammates. Aaliyah Boston thrived in the paint next to Clark. Guards like Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hull found better looks. Even Sophie Cunningham slotted in perfectly because Clark's passing stretched defenses wide open. And here's the key difference. Clark doesn't just score. She makes the whole unit stronger. Indiana's attendance is skyrocketing. Merchandise is flying off shelves. National TV wants them. They're building a winning culture. Meanwhile, Chicago is drowning in locker room drama, suspension headlines, and frustrated fans asking one question: did we bet on the wrong star? Because here's the bottom line. Angel Reese demanded her team overhaul the roster, but in reality, the front office might need to overhaul her. What good are 15 points and 12 rebounds if they come buried under turnovers, technicals, and fractured chemistry? Reese wanted to be the centerpiece of a rebuild, but the truth might be harsher. The Chicago Sky's biggest problem could be Angel Reese herself.